Got Ross Campbell here today. Welcome to the Below the Line, Above the Line show.
Thanks for having me.
We talk about anything production, anything film. We've known each other for a while now.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of questions about some of the backstories of how you ended up where you are kind of now, which is pretty impressive and wild. We share a similarity in our backstory from I moved from Europe, Canada, U.S.
Yeah.
You left U.S. to Southeast Asia, Singapore. We'll get to that in a little bit. But first thing I wanted to ask you, you were a child star, right? Like a child actor. Sorry. You were a child actor, right?
Yeah.
How, why, who started that? Who initiated? Was it you just putting up little things and they were like, oh, we should just, get him get paid for this, or?
Oh, it was, that was my parents. They moved over from Philadelphia in the early 90s. And I think I was just the first one at the time I was like 4 at the time. My mom just put me into it. So they just came to California, and I'm not sure what happened. Maybe somebody told them like, oh yeah, you should get them into, this or that. And I think my mom met like an agent while I was out. And
somewhere just playing, and somebody's like, you should get that kid in the...
Yeah. And then I think I want to say it was like the first thing I did. Next thing I knew, I was like, she was taking me to random places in LA and getting headshots and stuff. And I'm like, what's going on? Why am I putting on different clothes? And the first thing I at least what I remember, I remember them going through a script with me, and it was an audition for something. And I want to say it was the first thing. Or maybe it was the first thing I remember, but it was for a movie with Johnny Depp and Eric Roberts, and it was called Pork Chop. And I was I think I was playing the young version of the lead. Mm-hmm. And it was a gruesome scene. I remember seeing like the storyboard when I was a little kid of like a murdered woman. And I was like, what's going on? But I think what happened was
do you remember how old you were?
I was 4.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but I still have like like little clips in my head of like these memories. And one thing that got me the call back was I think the story was I was supposed to be a detective whose parents were murdered at a young age, and another detective is at the crime scene trying to console me and tell me that like, oh hey, Batman's parents died. So, and I just remember that line, and I loved Batman at the time, and I got super excited about Batman, and I didn't even know I was acting. And then I got the part in the movie, but the producer died in a car accident. So the movie never happened, but the trade articles came out and everything. And I had an article when I was a little kid, and like,
who was and somebody who you said there was who was the movie with, or who was in it?
Eric Roberts and Johnny Depp.
Wow.
It was early 90s. Yeah.
But it never came out.
Never came out because the producer died in a car accident, and then they were going to do it again. They were going to resurrect it, but I was getting older. And, so
was it a big role? You had a few lines.
I don't remember. I think I was just like a little playing the lead as a young kid, like a flashback scene or something.
Did you have any scenes with Johnny Depp?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think it was. Maybe I was playing Johnny Depp as a kid.
So
I gotta ask my mom.
This is Johnny Depp 30 years ago.
Yeah, I gotta ask my mom. But yeah, it's true. I'm 30 now. But after that, it was little stuff like going to booking a McDonald's commercial where I'm just playing with a toy, or I was doing print ads, and I liked it. It was cool. I got to leave school on certain days. I had a little work permit, and I didn't have to, when I had an audition or a thing to do, I got to leave and be on set, and I loved being on set.
Was that a little savings account that parents set up for you for your little acting compensation? And
yep, the Coogan account.
Was it like a college account or something?
It's a Coogan account. It's like something you can't, parents can't touch. Well, unless you're in the union. So I think, yeah. But
were you in the union?
Yeah, I got in the union through all that. So I got into SAG before it was SAG-AFTRA throughout all that. But now I'm grandfathered into SAG-AFTRA still. And that was because of what I did when I was younger. Yeah, I always knew I wanted to be on set there, but at one point I wanted to be a pilot, and
Me too.
Yeah.
Was it after watching Top Gun?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So, and my dad worked for the airline, so he always brought me around planes and things like that.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. Is he a pilot?
No, he's an airline mechanic.
Airline mechanic.
Yeah.
Ooh, even better.
Yeah.
Digging in the engine. And so, did he ever bring you to work and just...
At some points he did, yeah. And he even had a buddy who owned a Cessna, and I got to fly that as a little kid.
Like 172 or something?
Yeah.
I have a huge love for aviation. I love flying.
I still do. One day I still want to do that as my
do you
bucket
get your,
list.
do you have your private license?
I want to get one eventually, yeah. That will be my bucket list thing to do.
Absolutely.
And
It's a lot of people think is,
like
a lot of
Harrison
people...
Ford.
A lot of people think it's more expensive than it actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's achievable, you know.
It's definitely.
So I think it was in high school when I wanted to decide what kind of school I wanted to go to.
Was there, hold on. So was there any in the acting, was there any, were you wanting, like, first of all, was there any big role or anything that was like significant that you can remember that was like a big project or anything? What would be something the biggest, or was it like little commercials and little fill-in spots here and there?
That was the closest I got to acting in a feature. Was that
one of the very first things when you were young?
Yeah, and that was the start. And
Did you want it to be an actor?
I had no choice. I think my mom. I mean, my
No,
parents
like
asked
so.
me,
As you were growing up, did you want it to like? Oh wow, like I like this acting thing.
As growing up, I mean, I liked the acting thing because I liked leaving school and being somewhere else, and I didn't have to, be in class, and that's what I loved about acting as a kid. I would say probably when I got a little older, like when I was like, 12, 13, I got a little toy camera from Toys R Us. It was just like something my dad got me for Christmas, and it was like a little crappy digital camera that you would film. I would just film with my buddies, plug it into a computer. It had all the editing, like little, simplified editing program for kids. And I made all sorts of movies on that. And then that's when and I mean, before that, I love, like, one of my favorite subjects in school was creative writing, and writing, teachers encouraged us to write our own stories, share them to the class. And
I always forget that you write as well.
Yeah.
You always like, hey, I write too, right?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you do? So then you went from, you leaped into teenage years and then high school, and then were you doing any film or anything like that in high school as well?
Yeah, here and there. I mean, every chance I got to, sometimes the teacher would be like, okay, you could either write a 30-page paper on a subject or you can make a little movie about it. Like, we would get those opportunities. And of course, I would always try to make a short film off of, like, my history project, or something. And that carried on to, like, I went from that little, it was called a digital blue camera. And that's also what changed me from, like, I want to be a director one day. I want to work behind the camera, not just in front. Because I was still doing even all throughout middle school and high school, I was still doing, like, little things here and there where, I had an agent, and she would call and say, hey, we have an audition for, a cereal commercial. And I would still do that kind of stuff. But I loved writing.
Get some extra cash?
Yeah. I mean, it helped out a lot in the long run. I mean, it helped pay for my college. It helped pay for my car, helped pay for my house. It's like
smart, amazing.
Little things that, it's now since drained, but it helped get me to where I am now. And those things were pretty valuable, education, having no car payments and working on, other things.
Tori, what's the last year of college? High school here. What is it called?
Senior year.
Senior year. All right. Senior year. So senior year comes around, and here it is. What is it, 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Ross Campbell. Like, film, is it that you're like, this is a passion? So that's, first of all, congratulations, because it takes people. It took me, or I know people that have never figured it out, really, what, like, the true love. Like, I can talk about this nonstop. I can do this even if they don't pay me.
Yeah.
This is what I love to do. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It was that moment when I just started to kind of just play around with the camera and just be like, this is what I want to do. And that's when I steered away from being a pilot, and I started to kind of do my research. I remember in middle school wanting to go to USC and knowing that. USC Film School. And
so senior years of high school comes, and you're talking to yourself and like, I'm going to go to college, film school.
Yeah, I actually got a little derailed because I was a little lost in the football stuff. I was playing high school football. I was doing really well. I had all sorts of like coaches coming up to me and saying like, yeah, we want you to play for our school and come over here. And I've always had this dream of going to a good film school like USC. But I took a scholarship to Montana and I played football there for a year. And the passion never left. I just tried to do the best thing I could out there. Like, what's the best I can do? So my major was theater. So I actually learned how to direct theater plays first and running a theater production
No
up
kidding.
there. Yeah, but other than the theater classes, you know, all my other classes were, I was doing so bad that year. It was my first time getting, you know, freshman in college. I just had the freedom not to go to class. I only went to my theater classes and, you know, played football, and I was, you know, my GPA was suffering and the coaches were getting mad because I could lose the scholarship. So they actually took me out of the theater class and forced me to go to my other classes.
Your other classes?
Yeah.
So you were there only for a year?
Yeah, only for a year.
So you were like, no, I'm
Yeah.
done with this. I want to go to film school.
I had that realization, you know, being away in Montana, you know, I was a fish, you know, I didn't really fit in out there. Loved the place. It was beautiful. People there were great.
Yeah,
but,
Montana's amazing. It's beautiful.
yeah.
Gorgeous.
I love it there, and I still have really good friends out there. But I just I need, you know, coming back home for the summer, I realized I'm like, I don't really want to go back. So I went to community college for a year, and then I ended up going out to Chapman University out in Orange.
Yeah. So how did Chapman how did Chapman get on your radar?
Well, it was one of those things where if I wanted to play football at USC and go to the USC film school, it was going to be very challenging. My grades still weren't as good from Montana. Community college, I actually picked it up and got really a high GPA there, but I still was, you know, I didn't know if I qualified. The coaches at Chapman, there was a D3 football program there. They really wanted me to play out there for them, even though there was no scholarship offered or anything. They could help.
And
pull some
D3 is
strings.
the Division 3, Division 2, Division 1.
Yeah.
So D3 is that the lowest out of the divisions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
still
not
pretty
like a-
good, right? I guess.
Yeah. It's not a popular school for football,
Got
but
it.
its film program was actually higher than USC on the rankings that year. So it was actually better than USC.
And what school was this?
Chapman.
Chapman. I thought Chapman's only film school.
It's known to be a film school, a law school. It's
Isn't
a private
it Chapman even based the name based on the gear, the equipment?
school. No,
Chapman?
no. It's just, that's
so
just a
one
coincidence.
another. Oh,
Yeah.
you just.
I'm not actually sure. Maybe the guy wanted
You
to
shattered
Chapman.
my, you shattered my world right now.
Maybe
I
it is. I
thought
don't
the
know.
Dolly
I never looked into
company had to do something with the Chapman University. I thought that was.
No.
Do they have a lot of Chapman dollies on?
I mean, they had a lot of equipment there. I mean, it was the school itself is, you know.
Was it all
private.
Chapman and Leonard?
Sorry?
Was it all Chapman and Leonard?
Oh,
Like the
they
gear?
had some stuff there. No,
Yeah?
they have
No?
Fisher dollies. Yeah, I remember Fisher. I
Oh
remember,
well,
yeah.
that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
that's kind of. So you decided to go to Chapman. Did you
Yeah.
finish?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I stayed there for about 3 years. I played football, and I got into the film school there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was that was like, you know, the first time I actually did like professional productions because they gave you everything, and it's a private school, so they had a little bit more resources than USC, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone got a chance to make their film. Even the guy who was learning something that had nothing to do with being on camera, like they had to direct their own short film at one point.
Did you
just to learn
write,
everything.
produce, direct, star in your, or
I mainly
what was your film, student film?
I did. I actually did the most student films at the time. When I first got in, I always wanted to direct. Right, I love the creative side. But what they advised me, because of the path I was already on with my grades and everything, to get me into the film school, they opened a new program called creative producing, where you would learn how to be a producer, but you also keep the creative side of things. Like some of the electives are you have to take a writing class, you have to take a law class, you have to do the business class.
There's a lot of these so-called, well, I don't know, so like there's a lot of creative producers now.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of people that put together music videos, you know, they get a producer that is heavily involved with the artists and everything. I've been seeing that around. And it's something me coming from the television world, you know, producer,
Yeah.
line producer, AD's AD, director, you know, it's very union, then very structured. But then I just recently finished a couple of music videos and I was like, oh, creative producer, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
totally makes sense. Stays on the creative side of the whole thing as well. So
Yeah. It was definitely a great learning experience for me, because even though I wanted to be a director, I was like, I can learn how to do everything in production, and that's actually more valuable than just relying on just being a director. Like if I can learn how to put the production together and oversee every department, and also be able to keep my creative side to think outside the box on certain things, that goes a long way. When I was out at Chapman, I had to take a couple of years of the electives, and we had to do like a small, like low budget, like very, very low, like 3-minute short films, but still use the camera, like the professional equipment, learn how to use all that stuff to make our, like little short films. And then once we got into like our senior year, that's when we did the Thesis Films, which are 25-minute short films. I actually ended up, you were supposed to do 2, one in the fall, one in the spring. I ended up doing 7 because there wasn't enough.
Overachiever.
It was kind of cool. No, well, it was like the way they kind of paired it too. It was just like there was the directing majors, like all the directors, and they would have to find their producer, and they set it up like speed dating. So I would have to sit across from you, like how I am with you right now, and you would have to tell me, like speed dating. They would set a timer, and you would have to pitch me your idea, and then I would have to tell you if I want to do it or not.
As a producer or as a
producer.
Oh, okay.
And then you would have to choose me too. Like you would have to tell, get my ideas. Like as a producer, what am I going to do for that kind of idea? Like. Somebody was like, oh, I want to do this Monster in the Woods idea. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We could shoot out here. We could do that. Like I can get this. And like, we can actually make your idea happen with the little budget that Chapman's going to give us, and this is how we're going to do it.
What was an average budget that they were giving the students?
They would give you like $5,000, but they would also give you equipment and everything too. Like, so you would have a lot provided, like insurance, equipment.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. And they would give you like $5,000, additional in case, and that would go towards craft services. That would go to,
nobody got paid.
Nobody got paid. Everyone's doing it to learn. You would have to try to cast your actors either from the acting program at Chapman, or you would have to do like, breakdown calls and stuff like that, and just tell people it's a student film. So
amazing.
Yeah, actors would have to do it just for their reel.
When did,
but you did have the option. They did teach you how to finance too. So like they would tell you,
is there like so there is a business portion of Chapman that,
as the producers,
teaches the show business side of the,
yeah.
What does that look like? Is it like a business class, or is it focused on the film business, like for film financing?
Well, there's certain things where like there's certain classes that they focus on that. Like different classes would help you out with your thesis. One class would pretty much just tell you all about it. Like a producer would just, like a producer professor would just help us like look at the problems ahead of time and try to teach us like how to handle these problems and also just go through it. But they also encouraged us in the producing major to actually, like, while we're making these short films, they are high quality shorts because we're using the best equipment. And, even though the director is probably a little green, we can still try to submit this to festivals or try to create a business plan. Like maybe this could be a proof of concept, in the future. Like don't just look at it as a grade. And so like one of the short films I did, we won the BAFTA award for best short. And it didn't turn into a feature or anything, but that's just to give you an example.
It's pretty big.
Yeah. We could actually get out there.
You're arguing some really good points for why to go to film school versus the why not to go to film school, right?
True, right? And I'm an advocate of both. Like I love the people who take the journey who, like yourself, right? Like you went out and, you just met people, you networked, you went from Canada to here, and it's all about who you know. But where I took it, I know.
Can I ask you how much much was the tuition?
Tuition, I think 40,000 something semester.
In 3 years?
Yeah.
So 120K?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it like, would I want to make shorts in the film school with the gear and given 5,000, or would I want to take 120,000 and maybe go make 3 larger production kind of or maybe even a small feature type? I'm looking at the investment of the film school versus,
your education.
Yeah, going on a set maybe as a PA for 1 or 2 years, just learning the ropes a little bit.
Either way, it has its, advances. Film school also helps you build your contacts. Sometimes like that's why people join fraternities, because they become, a chapter or whatever later on in life, and somebody who works high up in a company because you guys were the same. I don't know. Same thing with film school. All these people you work with, all these they're connections that you have for the future. And Chapman actually does something interesting. They actually started a film fund using tuition money, which sounds like a scheme, but it's not, because what they do is they actually ends up benefiting the alumni, is because the way their film fund is accessed is we have to have a Chapman director, 50% have to be Chapman crew, that are looking for work, and they finance like $1 million projects, the feature films.
Have you been involved in any of those?
No, I saw I saw a couple of their projects they got off the ground. They're still figuring it out, and but I like the idea of that as well. That's another benefit towards like, okay, I went and got this education, but they're not helping me find work, or they do help you find work, or they help bring the work to you. So
It's an interesting concept for sure.
So there's benefits to both sides, but but after doing that, I really got a chance to like be hands on, because they don't. From what I heard about like USC, and maybe I'm wrong now, but only certain people got a chance to do the short film. Most people kind of had to just study film in theory, like out of the book. Chapman, like I said, every person got a chance to make a short film and be thrown into it. And it's better that you fail at your short film than you do if you got an opportunity to do a feature and you really didn't know what to do. So it was a very good learning experience for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're the first person who kind of really broke it down for me. So I went the route non-film school. There was a competition for a TV commercial, grand prize, wrote it, produced it, directed, shot it. This is when the Red 1 came out.
Yeah.
So we shot on the Red 1 with the red. Remember, they even had the red lenses. The primes, the red primes.
We got to shoot with the red in film school, and I was like, this thing's awesome.
I know. And then you look at it now and you're like, Jesus, how did we ever shoot on this thing?
I was like, red's not cool anymore, guys. I shot my film on a Red Dragon, and people were like, oh, Red Dragon.
Red Dragon.
It's all about Alexa.
I know. We're not even, that's a debate with a DP here in a later episode, but I don't understand it. But look, so you're finishing, you're finishing up film school.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to hear this process, because I didn't go through it. So I actually now, when you're talking about, I think film school is really about what film school you choose then. Because like you were saying, USC there were students that probably didn't even get a chance to make a short. Like you did 7 in your senior.
Yeah, and that's because, like I said, you're supposed to do 1 in the fall.
Yeah, but even
of a thesis.
Okay, so even 2 is better than being in a USC for 4 years and not doing 0.
Yeah.
So you got quite a bit of on-set experience. You had on-set experience from being a child actor, so you kind of were familiar what is happening a little bit. I mean, I know with the actors, it's like you're in the trailer and then you get brought up when you're kind of ready to be. But were you wandering? Were you ever like wandering around the set and just kind of exploring how all of that works?
I always wanted to learn, and that was the thing that I wanted to get the most out of it. And even though they told me that you can only do 2 theses, they were short on producers because the Korean producing major didn't have enough students to match with the directors. So there's directors without producers.
Which Korean did you say?
At Chapman.
There's a Korean.
No, sorry. The creative producing major didn't have enough people.
Oh, I thought you
to
said
match
Korean.
with the directing
like,
majors.
Wow,
yeah, that were doing their theses. So they didn't have enough to match. So they were asking what other people are willing to do another thesis film. And most of them looked at it as like your professor asking you, hey, how many people want to write another final paper? Like you've got one 30-page paper to write. Like we need people, who wants to volunteer for extra credit and do, 3 more. And people were like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like that's how they were looking at it. And I was like, well, I want to jump on a couple more films if I can. And it took up all my time, and I had no time to party, or, I had barely enough time to balance football and producing short films, but it was so worth it.
Were you ever wondering throughout the school, did I pick right? Or were you always positive and 100% convinced that this is the route you're going to go? Was there any moment ever where you were like, I don't know if I want to do this?
I was very positive. I'm always optimistic, and I, even though I wanted to be a director, and we all have that dream. I thought, well, learning how to be a producer, I will be able to understand better and create better opportunities for myself and for other people if I stick to this. So that's what I was pretty positive in it. And even though a lot of people were negative and just been like, oh, well, you know, you're going to apply to this job. It's, you know, so many other people are going to try to apply to, you know, that.
So at what point so Ocean Bar, that's how we
Yeah.
met.
Yeah.
We were both working security in between jobs. I think for me, probably it was just a few years after I came from Canada to US, and I was just kind of figuring out what I was going to do, and then I started a whole nother company. But we met there. That was right after Chapman?
Mm-hmm.
Or was that during Chapman? Or
Right after Chapman.
right after Chapman.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you kind of finish.
let me try to think of the timeline here. Yeah, I was done with Chapman.
I just wanted to ask you, how
Yeah.
did the Singapore idea even came to your head? Like, how did you even like?
Well, that ties into Chapman. Another reason why it was a good move for me to go there. Chapman had a sister school in Singapore, like a small little, you know, satellite division where they would teach, you know, some Singaporean students about film out there. And I was friends with one of the exchange students who was going from that sister school because his parents were doing business out there, and he was doing a couple of years in the Orange County school. And I became really good friends with him, and he was actually the one who told me, yeah, you should totally go out to Singapore. So right after I got done with school, and some of my producing or the professors, they encouraged us to go to markets. They said if for film financing or to get an idea off the ground, like, go to markets. And so I had this moment where when after graduation, there was sort of a decision I had to make. And some professors were very pro go join an agency. And even though you're learning how to be a producer, you end up just working for CAA, you know, and so they were just trying to get as many of the students jobs, you know, probably to, you know, bring up the success rate of the school at, you know, places like ICM, Gersh, CAA, and starting off in the mailroom to working up to being a talent agent. And I didn't want to do the agent thing. And I still, like, when I was doing my job while I was at Chapman, I was working under a producer that, you know, Tori and I know, and he's connected with recently, and he's doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was.
You didn't want to be an agent even after watching Entourage?
Yeah, right.
All right, Gold.
No, man, I wanted to be the one running around town and.
Vinny Chase.
Yeah, with the Entourage.
So I didn't
cool.
know that. So I
Yeah.
didn't know that about the Singapore tie into Chapman. So that's there was a connection there. So you weren't like you didn't
Yeah.
like literally went with your finger on the map and say Singapore.
No, it was the idea was brought to me, and then I was letting it stew in my mind for a few months. You know, when I was trying to figure out what to do, and you know, like I was after school. I was still working with this. I was working as a producer assistant. He was a producer, and their company also managed people and managed kind of like an agent, like, you know, a writer, managed writers and actors while they finance and produce films. So I got I got a little bit of everything there, and that was a good experience too, because I was working under a producer who was dealing with a lot of the stuff that I deal with now, and I learned a lot from him on how he handled things. But I was still very green, and I was out there, and that's when Ocean Bar came in. I was working, you know, we were working security to get by. That was my other job while I was at Chapman. I worked security at a dive bar, and you know, made some money. And that
You worked on another bar too?
before Ocean Bar, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I was a little worked there, and then when I was not living in Orange anymore to save money, I moved back home with my parents to figure out the next step, and I was close to Ocean Bar, and you know, my sister got me the job there as security.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where we met Mike,
Mm-hmm.
and then him and I, you know, he kind of just sparked the idea to me. He's just like, look, I want to make a feature. I want to direct. And I was like, well, you know what? I learned how to produce. I know this. I know the game. I know what to do. I'm going to take the leap of faith. I'm just, yeah, let's just do it. And so that's when, while I was still figuring things out, I was trying to package his project. And then I had the opportunity to take a trip. You know, I had the money put aside to, you know, go to do an awesome vacation, you know, after college to celebrate. And instead I used that money to go to Singapore and to go to a market. And I had some ideas.
Can you elaborate on that market? When you say market, you know, I'm thinking farmer's market. So
Right. Sorry. Yeah, no, film market where all the distributors, professionals, you know, investors, financiers, buyers, they all go to sort of like a convention.
So like an
For film.
expo. So
Yeah, like an expo, yeah.
There's like a Cinegear expo, right, in Burbank once
Right.
a year. So that's all about the cameras, the mics, the gear, the dolly, all that. So this market is for the distributors,
Mm-hmm.
the buyers, right, to kind of meet. But are you bringing finished products there, like finished movies? Like here's a movie.
Just concepts.
Concepts.
So, yeah, like we have in Santa Monica AFM,
Mm-hmm.
where all the companies come together, and whether you have a finished film that you're looking for distribution, you can go there and show your trailer to people and get bites and sell it. And
So if you're showing a trailer, then you already have a movie made.
yeah,
So you're
or,
trying to
or if you have a proof of concept,
proof of concept. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's both. So you're selling finished movies that you've shot and it's ready to go, or you're selling concepts.
Yeah, so I had some concepts that I had from Chapman, and we had those short films made, so I could show them the short film.
Did you already have the BAFTA
Yeah.
award?
Yeah.
Okay.
At this point.
And you had it as a what? You were the producer on it?
Yeah, one of them.
Okay.
So one producer needed help, and then I became another one. So
Okay.
yeah,
So you guys got a BAFTA for, or what did the film won a BAFTA for?
best student short film
Okay, directing,
Yeah.
producing, or just overall?
overall.
Overall. Ooh,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
it was cool. Like
That's pretty big. It's a
Yeah.
pretty big deal.
And Chapman had the money to have like its own like Academy Awards, and it was actually like pretty like they actually put
Legit?
on a pretty legit show. Yeah, we won that. We won on that. Like we swept we swept the awards on that.
So you had to
And
give a speech.
yeah, well, when the other producer went up, the entire team went up.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
it was cool. That was a cool experience.
So you went to the market.
Yeah, and I had all these concepts, and then that it was cool because that's where you like kind of meet all your. It goes on for like a week, and what they tell you to do is have your company start a DBA, have a production company set up, and I just jumped on with my buddy's company, and who he does like little things.
So what are you
small.
just walking around and run into somebody, or they have people have booths and you stop by and
Pretty
say,
much.
hey,
when you get your ticket, they'll give you like a catalog with everybody's information. You can email everybody and just say, hey, I just would love to pitch some ideas, or I have concepts that I want to use, or you basically say what you want, why you're reaching out to that distributor or that
Sure.
person, that production company. I have concepts, and they'll say, yeah, sure, Monday at 3 p.m. you can meet with Steve.
and where is
at
this
booth
happening? Is this
3B.
some kind of convention hall, or
Yeah.
and it's all set up and then give you guys conference rooms and you can network?
Pretty much.
That's
much.
amazing.
Or like cubicles, like Comic-Con or whatever, like an expo, like you said.
Yep.
Santa Monica, the one in Santa Monica, they actually take out a hotel and they actually clear the hotel rooms out and make that the meeting offices.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we meet in room 300, it's just, that's where, Saban will be or whatever.
Yeah. So you had pretty luck. I'm assuming you had some success with that.
I met some good contacts. Yeah. And not just that.
This is all pre-Singapore, right?
This is Singapore now.
This is in Singapore?
This is in Singapore.
So you went to a market in Singapore?
Yeah. So I didn't go to the one in LA.
Santa Monica, okay.
Yeah. I went
So
to,
this is your first trip. I'm going to go to the
first,
market
yeah.
there. I'm going to make some context. But was there any drive why you picked the Southeast Asian market, like why you thought making movies there, or, I know you had that exchange student friend, and, you got Chapman had the sister.
contacts out
yeah,
there.
but like,
and,
I'm thinking I like the idea, if, for the listeners or viewers of this, that like US is not the end all be all. Like
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of huge film markets around the world.
yeah.
And you're in the prime example of somebody, going overseas for, how long you been there? 6 years?
Yeah.
6 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a long time to move to another country and everything. So what was the interest? Why did you felt like the film industry in Singapore? Why did
I don't know. I was thinking outside the box. I could have went to AFM for my first one, but I wanted to get out. I wanted to go somewhere different. And I felt like maybe if I went over to Singapore, I would have a better chance of being heard than if I was in LA, with
Fighting Hollywood?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, against a bunch of either people I already know or I already know of,
Or more experienced people?
Yeah,
Got it.
so I wanted to kind of go out and just see what was out there, and I knew they had, they had a lot of Singapore. It's not just Singapore; it's everyone around the world. So LA is mainly focused on, like, they have some companies from overseas that come by, but it's mostly US companies. Singapore, you'll find some Chinese connections. You'll find connections in the Middle East. You'll find a sales company in Europe. It's just there's tons of options there, and nobody knows who I am. I don't know who they are. It's just we can have a better conversation that way and discuss.
Did it help
ideas.
that you were from US and was that something that helped you?
I think so.
Just like, hey, I'm a Hollywood kid.
I think so. I think one of those things where, I came from the U.S. and a lot of people didn't know who I was, so they were more interested to talk to me. Like I had more people actually approaching me than them.
Yeah, because you can set up networking back to U.S. for co-productions, which is exactly what me and you are working on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah, it was cool.
You're there at the market.
Yeah.
And
after a few days of trial and error and kind of like
figuring it out,
doing the warm-up meetings where I don't really know what I want to talk about yet, where I just completely bomb. I set up a couple meetings with a few companies that I know that were like not the big ones, but somebody I could just talk to and kind of get my pitch down and practice. It's practice. So,
give me a little 30-second of what the meeting is about when you sit down with somebody, what you're pitching them, the concept, right?
Yeah. What I would do is I would sit them down. I would have everything kind of laid out like we know as lookbooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way Chapman taught me was, some people do lookbooks differently, right? They make it like a vision board. Like if you're a director, you want to kind of show them the vision that you have in mind, something to leave them with, not just a pitch. Like if you were to only have a certain amount of time to talk to them and you want to get every detail, you want to put that on paper. For me, I was putting in what the story was about, the actors we wanted to go for, but mostly the financial structure. Like how, if you're going to invest in this film, how are you going to make your money back and make it as clear as possible for them to understand it?
This is so crucial, by the way, for so many directors.
Yeah.
Even for me now, working on my first feature film is like having experience with other businesses and knowing structure of business and investors and things that I'm doing in other things. So that helped that you actually had that some experience. I mean, because ultimately these people are going to be looking for somebody who can say, yeah, this is a great concept, great sci-fi or great thriller, great horror, but how much is it going to cost to make it?
Yeah.
How can we sell it?
Yeah. So you put the budget in there. You put basically how much could it sell in each territory. So that's where you get like a sales company involved to either do sales projections for you. But sometimes you don't need that. Maybe you're not pitching to you're not pitching to a financier. You're pitching to a creative. So you got to do the mood board. You got to and it could be shorter, something a little bit more compact, for them to grasp the idea and not take up all day to kind of show them. So there's different ways of doing it. I like the approach of just showing them everything, like everything I can talk to them about in a meeting, put it in that book and leave it with them. So they have something to review later on, or when you follow up with them, they have something to kind of look at and they won't have so many questions.
And at this point you're just visiting Singapore?
I was going there. I was visiting and I was going to the market. So I made it sort of like
what I mean, at this point you didn't have decided that you're going to live there for 6 years yet.
No, I didn't. Right. So, yeah.
So what led to that? So you must have had some amazing experience on the market and met some interesting people, and where you're like, when did you make the call to your parents? I'm moving to Singapore for.
There was a little bit of time in there, because what happened was, while I was pitching these ideas, I had Mike's idea, I had another friend from college who we did a short film together, and we were trying to make it into a feature. And then, they always told me in film school, just don't have one idea. Don't try. I know you love that feature, but don't go there and try to just make just that feature, because they're going to say, okay, cool. It sounds great. What else do you have? They want to see that you're versatile, like, oh, I have this action film, I have this horror film, and I have this comedy. Give them something, because you never know what company or what, producer is looking for. What are they, what's going to work for them in their slate. So what happened was, at my time, I think that's when faith-based films were starting to kind of make a surprise, with their returns and everything. And so I had a few ideas, and then I had one idea, which was a faith-based film, which I wrote during one of my electives as a creative producer. And it was not the best, it was a first draft. I just had it done, but I just wanted to have it as an option in my stack of concepts that I'm pitching in my, meetings. So what happened was that did happen. Some people were like, okay, we're not looking for this right now. We're not looking for this. This is interesting. What's this about? And then I was like, well, oh crap, that's something I wrote in college. Okay, let me pitch it. And I actually had a few people want that idea over the other ones I actually put in front.
Right.
That was just like the backup, like the third backup, and it was mine. It was one that I wrote, and I had a
who has a quote? Sorry, somebody has the quote that I think it was either Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese. I think the best stories are the most personal.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So I think you put your idea that basically you were the most passionate and you were the most in love with, or came from you.
Well, it was like I didn't really know anything was going to happen with it, and I
was. You put it on the back burner, but then it was like everybody ended up. So what was that? 100 yards?
Yeah. So what happened was like when you're in film school, like. Other than doing your like as a producer, other than producing short films with the other majors, what you're doing mostly is you're learning how to develop a pitch package. You're learning, like one class, you're learning how to do the pitch package, like how to create and design it. Another one is like, how would you structure a finance deal, like in a finance class? And they always say like, oh, come up with an idea and do it. And so I didn't come up with different ideas for each class. I just had this one idea. I was just like, oh, I really liked it. In my screenwriting class, who was my professor was Michael Schiffer. He's the screenwriter of Colors, Lean on Me, Call of Duty. He's written multiple games, and but he helped me in that class. We had to create the first act of our script, and so he helped me create the first act, and then I got from there on another class and finished the script, where the final thesis was to deliver a final script. So I had that, and then in the other class, the final thesis was like develop the package. So it was already all packaged from all the other classes. And I didn't really do it out of passion. I did it just because it was just easy for me to just use that one idea. And I loved it. Like creating it was it made me happy and everything, but I didn't ever think anything was going to happen with it. It was more of a project,
but now you're in the
like a hobby
Singapore film market.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what's that?
And then people are bidding on it. They're like, okay, well, if you could turn this into, instead of it was, it's a drama about a football player who is recovering from cancer. Instead of football, since we're going to be in Singapore over here, can we make him a musician? And I was like, okay, maybe. And then another person was like, oh, could it be this? Or could it be that? Or could we take the faith-based element out of it and just make it like, this? And then there was just one company that was just like, no, I love the idea that you created. Could we just keep this story, but figure out a way to shoot it in the Philippines? And I was like, yeah, that's great. And they also offered me the best deal. They offered me a job with the company. They offered to option the rights to it and keep me as a creative on it and not just buy me out and take the idea. So I stayed with that.
You ended up directing the movie, right?
Yeah, and that was a process too, because we were looking into directors. I was even looking into other writers to do punch-ups, because I was, in my mind, and the way I was taught at Chapman, I'm just the producer. Even though they taught me the creative side and every other aspect, I think it was just not just not professors, but just the mentality of like, oh, when you're a producer, that's all you can do, because that's all some other people ever did. Nobody actually were optimistic enough to kind of go out and do more. So after I did all the producing on it, and we were trying to look at directors and we're doing bids and stuff like that, and people were like, we're trying to make it for like $1 million budget. And we're trying to shoot in the Philippines.
They didn't tell you, right, that it was $1 million movie. You actually didn't know. I think you told me that you found out later that it was $1 million movie.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was, we were trying to raise $1 million and we got close to that.
What did it, but didn't it end up costing some, like, wasn't it, was that a different movie? I vaguely remember you telling me one day something about, like, oh yeah, like.
Probably another production.
Yeah. Okay. It was like, it was going to be like a $300,000 movie, and then I think Sherman was involved with 100 Yards, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just for that, like.
So now they're bidding. You're still there. Is this the first week? Your first time in Singapore still?
Well, it was a couple trips. There was one trip where I was out there and I met people, and I met these people. And I really liked them, and I really liked what they had to say. But you always got to follow up. And then sometimes, you can send emails, you can do phone calls, and the best thing to do is always just meet them again in person. So I actually went to the Hong Kong film market shortly after, And that one was a little bit cheaper. And then when I had money saved up for Singapore, coming back, going to Ocean Bar, that's when we were meeting and like hanging out. And I was working there, and I was also working with this.
So you already, before Ocean Bar, you also went to Singapore for like a little trip. And
yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was kind of like, you know, before you get married, you go on the dates, right? It's just like, I had to keep meeting up with these people. So I went to Hong Kong and met with the contacts again. While I was still doing the same thing, I was pitching other ideas to other companies, making as many connections as I could. And some of these connections, even though they're not the ones that did 100 yards, I still met them and I still have them in my Rolodex, you know, and we still keep up, and I find out what they're doing and, you know, see if they can help me out on a project. But it took a couple meetings. Like I had to go to Hong Kong, meet with them again, follow up with them. They're like, yeah, you know what, let's really move forward on this. And then they invited me back to Singapore, not on a market, but just come back, you know, in a couple months.
Is it the company that offered you the job?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that's when I found out I had I was working with the company. They told me over the phone that I was going to be working as the U.S. liaison for meetings and things like that. And then they brought me over to just basically live in Singapore and work with their group on another project, which was actually about human trafficking in Cambodia. And then we ended up kind of working on 100 yards amongst other things while we were trying to, you know, package and put the team together.
Was this one of Sherman's companies, or was he involved in it?
We didn't meet Sherman until later on.
Got it.
Yeah.
He came in as just an investor?
As another producer, and this was like he was working in global finance, and this was his first like test into film. So we were kind of, we all came together, we all ended up working together and, you know, looking for a director, trying to find the right director for it, because other than interviewing, we all had this idea that we wanted of the story we wanted to tell. And, you know, even though it was most of it was my idea, the changes they wanted to make was just to make it a co-production. How could it take place in the Philippines and in the U.S., or how can we use a U.S. actor? How can we make it a co-production? How can we tell this story? Which at the time I wrote it to take place in Montana. I just changed it to the Philippines, and we just had to make some story changes there.
How old are you when you guys moved from Montana to California?
From California to Montana, I was 18.
You were living in Montana.
Yeah, I was 18.
Moved to California, right?
No. I was in California. I went to Montana for a year when I was 18.
Oh, sorry. But your parents moved from Montana?
No, from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Sorry.
Yeah.
So how were you born?
I was born in California.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Colleen or any of the older siblings?
They were little girls, and yeah, they were.
So they.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, they were little, and my two older sisters, they were little. You know, I think they were like, you know, 8 and 9.
So they remember a little bit of the Philadelphia, and then the parents are like, "That's good for California." Got it.
So
was anybody else from your siblings in film or acting or anything like that?
No,
other than Colleen. And
Colleen was in
movie?
she was in drama, and she studied at Growlings and always wanted to be an actress, but never did, and that's why I was like, well, you got it in you, so get in there.
Very cool.
So, where was it? Yeah, so looking
Singapore.
at Singapore.
Now they gave you a job.
Yeah. We're coming to, you know, they gave me a place to live out there.
So it all happened. It wasn't like you backpack everything. And
no,
just
I mean,
like,
I was working with you at Ocean Bar for a little bit, and that's when we were talking, and I'm like, yeah, I'm working with Singapore. And
what was your decision factor? Like, yeah, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to move to Singapore. And when did you break it down to the family and said, I'm going to move, you know, what's it, 10,000 miles across the...
Well, I just wanted to, one, it was an adventure. It was something different. I was working, like I said, I was working for the one company, driving to LA every day, working in a cubicle office. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. You know, it would be the same story if I worked for a major company.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted the adventure. I wanted to go do something different.
Mm-hmm. And at this time, 100 Yards is being somewhat developed. You guys are finishing the script and getting pre-production. And at this point, did you had an idea that you might be the director, or that you... No?
Like I said, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to go, like what Wayne Gretzky says, like, I want to go where the puck is going to be, not where it's at. And so I saw Singapore as an opportunity, that, you know, their industry is coming up, and I kind of want to go and be a part of that. Well, yeah. So going back into the film, we were, you know, we were trying to come up with ideas for directors. Either they were overcharging us, or, you know, their fee was way too high for our budget, or they really wanted to change the story to something different. And one reason I liked this company and the company liked the idea is because we all wanted to tell that story. And so going through all of that, they kind of just looked at me and they're like, well, hey, you wrote the script, you know the story, you know the characters, why don't you just direct it? And I was, I had that moment where I was just like, I don't know if I can or not, but I was just like, man, this is my dream. This is what I've always been wanting to do. This is what I was talking about, like why I got into Chapman's creative producing. Like, this is the exact same vision that I had.
You're like, I'm not turning this down.
Yeah, that you're asking me about. Like, did I have that vision? I'm like, yeah, I did. I had that game plan in my mind, and it was playing out. And so, we didn't go with another writer. We just kind of all worked together on the notes, like from other producers, and then I just kind of structured it from the notes. And I ended up sitting in there and directing, and I brought on a co-director to help me out because I wanted somebody with experience to kind of like spot me while I was doing this. And he was great. And the reason why I wanted to bring him on, because I was going to do it solo, but the reason why I really wanted to bring on this co-director is because he did have the same vision as me, and he wasn't like the other directors that wanted to kind of completely change the entire story. And a lot of people technically, they didn't have faith in faith-based films at the time, but there were a couple that were coming out and making a lot of money back, showing that the audience actually wants to hear a good story, a story about faith and want to have hope. So, and my partners, they were pastors, and I'm, I've been raised on my faith, and there's a lot of reasons why I got through the tough times in life. So we really wanted to make sure that happened. And, we ended up going to the Philippines. We went to an island in Cebu. We casted some actors out of the U.S., and we casted locally. There were some challenges there.
So there was some. Hold on, let me back up real quick to the the beginning of the Singapore. So you do the festivals. You then went to Hong Kong, back to Singapore. You kind of hit it off with this one company, and you've created some contacts there, and then offered you the job. And there was a little bit of back and forth, U.S. and Singapore for a while. And then when did you actually move to Singapore? And then from that point, how long before you guys were actually actively working then on making 100 Yards?
Trying to remember the timeline, because it was, even though I was out there for meetings and we were having like a lot of meetings, not just on that, but other projects as well. So they just wanted me close by. But there were a lot of moments where, like when I was out there, I didn't have like a work visa. It was like you could always just leave the country for like a day and come back, and your visa renews like another 3 months. So I was kind of like doing it that way. And so there was a lot of back and forth. Like I would come back to the States for like a week, see my family, and have a couple meetings that they needed me to have out there. And then
were they paying for all the flights?
Yeah. Everything was taken care of. So
just go first class.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Qatar, or who's the airline, the major Singapore?
Singapore Airlines.
Amazing first class.
Oh, I know. It's like a room. It's nice. But yeah, there was a lot of going back and forth, and sometimes I would stay a little bit longer, like a few weeks at home and go back. So I wasn't like there constantly for like 6 years, but the majority of it, yeah.
Was there any point where you were there literally for like 6 months or 9 months?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I would say 3 months at a time.
What about the culture shock, dude? Like just Singapore. I don't know much about Singapore, but
it was actually kind of nice. Everyone there speaks English. It's a business town, so it's like the way Singapore, blew up in its economy was it was a free port trade. So everyone would like trade without, being taxed, and they would open their businesses there. And so that's why, like, if you look at Singapore in the 1950s and then the 50-year gap, you see it turn from like an island, like, just all the vegetation like a Southeast Asian island would have, to being like almost like Dubai, right? With like the, high-tech buildings and, the economy boomed, but only 6 million people in this little island.
But you really didn't know anybody either, right?
I didn't know anybody, but everyone spoke English because of all the trading and everything. So English was the number one language there. And there was...
So ordering food, going to places. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was pretty multicultural too. So where I stayed it was Yishun. It was the outer skirts of Singapore. So it was a little bit cheaper out there because Singapore is really expensive if you're in the city. It's one of the most expensive cities in the world to live. But when I was living in the outskirts like Yishun, it was more of like, it was closer to Malaysia, so it had more of that crowd there, and it was a lot more affordable to be there than inside the city. So yeah, that's pretty much where I stayed and
then
survived
so
off
from
of.
the first kind of going back and forth, when did you guys really start working on pre-production 100 yards?
Yeah, we were in development for a couple of years, and then I would say we were probably in 2014. We hit in the spring. We hit pre-production. We were like, okay, let's do it. Well, let's start setting everything up, because there was a lot of back and forth. We were going to go to Manila, and that caused a little bit of a delay because we didn't have the right contacts, or locations weren't working out right, scheduling conflicts with certain people. And then we decided we're going to go to Cebu. And Cebu was actually really great because it was a small island in the Philippines. It's a place where you go to vacation, so it's beautiful. It's not as crazy as like the mainland, like Manila, where there's tons of traffic. Like you can imagine making a company move just down the street, and it takes you hours just to drive there. You know, you get the trucks loaded and everything, and it's just like, so it was a little bit more. It was better to move around there. We had a deadline because of typhoon season. We had to film at this
when is that?
time. It was in June, July, and we were starting in May, and we ended up having to push closer and closer. So we were like, we still had to do that little dance with the scheduling and all that, and we were like, crap, we're getting close to, this.
It's always something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's always the weather, sun going down,
Yeah.
typhoon, tornado, snow, or no snow,
Yeah. There's always that environmental
Yeah,
thing you
yeah,
got to
yeah,
take
yeah.
in mind.
Yeah.
So, doing all that and doing the casting in the U.S. and then casting, we had a line producer out in the Philippines that helped us with that, with their side on wrangling the crew and finding us the people we needed to cast, the local hires.
So how long you were in pre-pro before you we're ready for principal photography?
A year. It was a long pre-production because we were really dead set on one area, and we were trying to plan for that. That didn't work out, so we went to another area. And somebody even told us to go outside of the Philippines and do something else, like go to Malaysia or something. And so we were trying to actually look into that. So we were kind of like starting off in different pre-productions, not spending the money yet, but just doing all the planning and getting it ready, and then stepping back and then going in a different direction.
Okay. And then so you're into it.
So when we got to Cebu, it took us about a few months to get everything lined up. And then I had to go live in Cebu for, the month for productions, get there early, and, like we did in Vegas, right?
How many days did you have to film?
We filmed 30 days altogether.
Wow. So your first feature film as a director is $1 million movie.
Yeah.
That you got 30 days to shoot.
Yeah. So
that's pretty incredible.
Thanks. Yeah.
You know that, right? Like
it was definitely a full on dive. So
yeah. Well, you did it. Tori, do you have the trailer? Do you want to pull up a little?
I do.
Yeah, let's check out. I think I've seen this like a while ago, so I'm gonna. Where can you watch 100 Yards?
Pretty much you can watch it on Amazon. It's not on Netflix, but it's on Amazon, Vudu. They distributed DVDs, Walmart, Target.
So, first of all, first feature film that you've wrote, directed, somewhat produced, right? And did you act in it?
I did, and that's another
story.
You
act in it, okay. You act in it. Hold on.
Yeah.
And then the movie made all its money back.
Yes, it did.
In fact, it made a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what the net return was? So
I don't. Yeah.
Roughly, was it a couple 100,000, or was it another million, or on top of it?
I can't really say.
You can't?
Yeah.
But did it do?
Yeah.
Everybody was happy?
Yeah, everyone was happy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't happen. This is some kind of like a magic story, or
in a way, yeah.
Like this is an incredible formula. Like I would like to look. I'm developing my first feature film.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear everything that you're saying, because I'm working with one of your connections.
Yeah.
And you as a producer on it.
Yeah.
Developing it to the Southeast Asian, production.
Yeah.
Co-production thing, but is incredible.
Yeah.
We can hear you in the mic.
Oh, what's up?
No, what? All right, we got this queued in. All right, let's play a little bit of this. Let me see.
I need to know who you are. I'm just a
You bump the volume a little bit, Tori? Yeah, on the YouTube one. On the bottom there. It's on the left.
I came to write a positive piece.
I do what I need to do for my family to survive.
It's a life you're trying to ruin. I don't have any more time. I'm losing everything. So this game really heals people, huh?
It has. You just gotta have faith. That's when you start healing.
Wow, beautiful.
When you need to call on God for strength, I hope you see that he's closer than you think he is. We fight together as a team, and I need you to see that.
I'm just trying to make things right here. Oftentimes in life, we believe when the clock starts to run out, we think the game is over. But it's only the second quarter.
It's amazing, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
Good job, buddy.
That was definitely, it was a journey of faith to make it. So that's why I was,
Look at his name in those credits.
yeah,
Yeah, where are you at?
I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
So, and then, that's where you learn how to wear multiple hats too. So
Ross Campbell. Damn, son. Good job.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Swiss
So,
Army knife of film.
you working, any stories from production you want to talk about in making this? Anything fun, anything exciting, or any horror story?
I mean, it was
Labor of love.
There was a lot that happened. It was definitely a baptism of fire for me, dealing with all the, all the loops and everything, especially in a foreign country, like all the stuff I learned in school.
Was it a football player, or did you change it to soccer player?
It's a football player. So what we did.
Is there football in Southeast Asia?
There is. So and I learned this when I was out playing for Division III. They were like, well, you can't. You're most likely not going to get drafted into the NFL playing here at this school, but you can. There's like small sponsored teams that the NFL actually like puts a little money into, and like some communities do. And it's like a lower division league, but around the world. So I could go play in Spain for an American football team, get paid to help coach the other players, like the locals there, on how to play the sport. And they would take care of my living and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. It's like a vacation, paid vacation where I get to play football. And, you get a few dollars in your pocket, but it's nothing. I never went that route because I'm like, I'm not going to spend 5 years playing football and then come back and start over with my career. I'm
Right.
just like, I just want to dive right into my career. But, my football side had a lot to do with the story. And changing it to the Philippines, that's the idea I had is it's going to be about this, NFL prospect football player who's supposed to go to the NFL, and he decides not to. He goes to the Philippines to search for his mom. And in order for him to stay there and have like a visa and everything like that, he joins one of these ragtag little football teams that they can't even afford to have football pads, so it's more like rugby. And it's like, getting Kobe Bryant going to play for like a small team in the Philippines. It's like, what the hell happened? Like, why is this guy over there? And so it causes a lot of media stir on him while he's going through his cancer recovery and is trying to find his mom.
What was the most difficult? Like anybody who wants to go to Southeast Asia to film, what would be something that you would be like, be aware of this, like make sure that you prepare for this? What was the number one thing that you...
Always be on top of the budget. I mean, it's like the one thing is, since I was producing and directing, I had a lot of producers who were, basically trying to keep stuff away from me because they didn't want to mess up my vision or stress me out and tell me that something's going on. And when we were going over budget, we didn't know why. So there's a lot of translation issues, with the crew out there. Not like anything bad was happening.
Like translation? Crew. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like something was supposed to cost more, or something cost more than something else, like equipment. We were like, we knew that we could shoot in the Philippines, and it would, it would be, more affordable to do certain things out there, but not having the resources of equipment. here, we're right next to Cinelease, right? We have Cinelease. If Cinelease is not going to, work with my budget, I can go down the street to the other place, to another camera shop. We have all that here. Out there, they only have like one spot. That guy can charge whatever he wants. And if I don't, he's like, okay, well, fly your equipment over from the U.S. then,
Right.
So certain things were, I didn't expect. And so like looking at the resources of where you're at, other than trying to film there for a tax incentive or for, lower minimum wage to work with your budget, you need to really look at all the other factors, especially environmental issues and things like that.
How's the crew there? How's working with the crew and the locals?
It was great. I mean, I was surprised, like, here, you working as an AD, it's like, you want to stay on schedule because, you want everyone to get some sleep. You want everybody to recover for the next day. I had that same mentality, but they were just like, hey, instead of moving the scene over, why don't we just keep filming? And I'm like, well, we're already going over. And, they don't care about overtime. They're just like, they actually have competitions where they shoot for like 36 hours, edit, they film the short, they edit, and they have to, submit it within the 36-hour window. And it's a competition. Who can make the best film with no sleep, So the crew was very hardworking. They were great people to work with. They were all, I have nothing but good things to say about them.
No unions, right?
No unions out there, no. SAG,
no nothing?
No. And the way it worked with SAG, I can go into that because that was something I learned. I knew I knew there was tiers for SAG on certain budgets. So I knew when we were filming we shot for a month in June, just before typhoon season hit. And we literally got out of there. I remember getting on the plane and watching all the rain come in on our last day. I was like, wow. We were always thinking that like we have to like figure out a way to shoot this inside or figure out the sound issue because the rain can come in at any moment. And we actually were able to get everything in the can and get out just in time.
But as you're leaving, it starts pouring.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, what happened was, a lot of crazy stuff happened on set. I remember I was, a crane fell, and it was just like act of God moments. Our lead actress
crane as a techno crane.
Yeah, technical crane fell on location. A tree fell too, like almost like killed our caterer. Like just really crazy stuff happened. Like almost every day it was like a TV show. Like you could make a movie off the movie. Is how crazy it was.
Have you guys have any? Do you have BTS?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
you got to share that with me at some point.
Oh yeah, that's on YouTube too.
Nice.
And it's funny. The company I worked with is called Above the Line.
Oh really?
Yeah, in the Philippines. If you look up on YouTube, the Above the Line behind the scenes, 100 yards, like you'll see the crew. Like they actually made the behind the scenes stuff. It was really fun, to kind of like have that. But we didn't have like a documentary like explaining everything.
No.
The director has, the other director I worked with has like a lot of footage on his phone.
I gotta check it out, man. I gotta see.
But yeah, like our actress, her dad had a stroke and he was gonna die, and so she had to leave. And we're like, how are we gonna? She was our main Singaporean actress from that side. That was our name, right? It's like for us, like Danny Trejo leaving, right, on the American Sicario. So we prayed. She came back. He was making a full recovery. It was like an act of God. Like stuff would happen. It was like test of faith. Like stuff would happen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. It's going to shut us all down. And then, it was okay. Everything, there was always a solution. So I knew like, okay, God is looking out for me, and he wants this film to come out. When we came back, we were over budget. So we had to figure out a way to raise more money. So I had to put everything on hold for a few months. And that was tough. It was a tough summer because I've never been through a production where I had to my first feature film and I had to go through the shutdown and find more money.
Hold on, you shut down while filming?
Well, we filmed in the Philippines, and then we had the second unit U.S. stuff to pick up with Sean Patrick Flannery. Oh, here it is. So you can see a little bit of the behind the scenes above the line. There you go. So you could see basically, the crew. Like they brought an army of people, and the cool thing about having the equipment was, you get the camera truck. It comes with the crew, with the package deal. So that's their salaries with the with your rental fee.
Wow, that looks like a lot of people.
And it was more people than expected. So, I mean, our budget went up in food, but we had the hands. It was great. And they all study at a really prominent school out there called Bigfoot, which is like their big film school in the Philippines.
Oh,
and
you
a lot
go
of them
sh-
actually studied in New
That's
York.
the red one.
Yeah, that's the dragon.
Oh, dragon.
Yeah.
Okay. My bad.
So a lot of them, they studied in the U.S. and actually lived out there in the Philippines, but they got U.S. education before they went back into film. So it's kind of cool to hear their stories and see what they do.
Do we get to see you in the?
Yeah, the way this kind of behind the scenes goes, it goes down department by department, which I love because, we got to give these guys some love. We got to show what
Of
they
course,
do and their hard work.
100%.
Our sound guy right there, they were hilarious. They're a great team, and they probably one of the best sound guys I've ever worked with. Even out here. So here's our director's team. There's me and Rebecca Lim. There's my co-director right there, Dale. I'm riding in a trunk while I had to film. I was acting in the scene, so I had to drive while he was directing in the trunk.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Tyler, thanks. How is safety handled? As an AD, I would probably want to ask you, how is safety handled in this, driving in the trunk?
You can get away with a lot of things out there. There's not a lot of, it's not like shooting here, So yeah, you could get away with it.
So anything goes.
Yeah, anything goes, pretty much.
We're making the movie. We're going to do whatever it takes to make it.
Yes. So
Fun.
yeah,
Fun.
anything goes, and that's why we had long hours to get the shots we needed. And
did you shoot anything else other than 100 Yards? Or you were there about 6 years, so not necessarily as a director, but
I helped with on packaging and financing of other projects. Some didn't get off the ground, but some got close, and one did. So we were just kind of lining up the slate of the other films we were going to do. This one, they all wanted to kind of strike the iron with it because there's it's just like a trend. There's the faith-based films were blowing up, and people were looking for faith-based films in their slates. So, well, at first it was interesting when I first went out to the markets. Everyone was like, "No, I'm not going to touch a Christian film. I don't want to hear Jesus or anything like that. It's bad for business, right?" And so I had a really hard time finding like-minded partners. And then after, the success of certain faith-based films and, their returns and everything, everyone was like, "Oh, you have a faith-based films? We want to add one to our slate. We want to add, it was a lot easier to get it out there to sell it right after we made it."
And so then you make the decision to come back, right? Go back to U.S.
So what happened was when we were going through that time, it was a very tough time.
What time?
Being shut down, looking for more money to the film.
Okay.
Which I would tell any young filmmaker who gets in the same position, everything always works out. At the time it doesn't feel that way, and it feels like the end of the world, but everything always works out.
Keep your head up.
Yes. And
take it one problem, one day at a time.
Yeah. It was a blessing in disguise that I went through that hard time because, during that, 4 family members passed away while I was in Singapore. So it was two passed away.
Your family members?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
When I was back for the summer. And then 2 more passed away while I was out in Singapore. And so I couldn't see them. And I was going through all this stuff with the film. And there was a lot of drama and a lot of heartache. And, we ended up getting that extra gap that we needed.
Was Sherman involved?
Yeah.
From day one or?
From day one. So he was part of all this. He understood, he knows my story. And he was in Singapore working on his end, trying to get, the
He came to visit on the set and whatnot?
Yeah, when we shot in the U.S.
Nice.
So long story short, we ended up, it was a cold summer, and it was very, stressful, moving around schedules too with an actor that we already, we had to pay or play with. We had to kind of work with that deal, and oh my God, are they going to allow us to push a schedule, or are they going to charge us again when we can't afford it? And a lot of do or die moments happened, and everything always worked out. We shot in October, and the thing with SAG, which is going into the union, this is kind of important, what I learned was, filming outside of the area, SAG doesn't really care, but once you come back with SAG actors in your film, since they really can't really monitor what's going on over in the Philippines, they can't track my hours, they can't send a rep out there. They can't really see if I'm if I'm in that tier of the budget that I say I am. They put me under the Global One rule, where they automatically qualify you as the top tier film. So your premiums go up, the minimum wage I have to pay the actor goes up. So we didn't expect that in our budget at all either. So for example, on a low budget film, which mine should have been, I should have been paying a day player actor, $200 a day, the SAG scale minimum. The minimum for the Global One that the Global One put me in, every day player I had on screen, I had to pay $1,000 a day. And when you're working with a $50,000 budget to shoot that week of
Day players,
of scenes, it became really tough. So I had to
that's a huge difference.
Yeah, so I had to adapt to that too, and figure out how to pull that off and work with SAG.
5 times as much
Yeah,
money in the budget. You're
like
200 versus $1,000 on 10 day.
Oh, yeah.
10 day play. That
because they
adds up
treated
huge.
me as the tier that if I was a $36 million film and more.
Huh.
So that's the thing about Global One that I think a lot of producers who think about, oh, maybe I could go do the same thing, the co-production route. If you want to shoot with SAG actors, you got to keep that in mind in your budget and everything. So that was something I learned. But yeah, after getting it done and putting it together and doing all the, of course we had like the pickup days here and there, where we got the insert shots. We had it together, and then I went back to Singapore for the editing. Like we did a little bit in the U.S.
Did you edit it too?
I sat with the editor all the time, how a
Okay.
director should. So I worked with an editor in the U.S. and then Singapore wanted to take it back. Our Singapore partners wanted to do up there and be close to them, so they brought me back. And then that's where, I was back for a couple months, and then I went back for another year to Singapore, and we were going through the edit and then selling and all that stuff there. Like we gave it to RLJ Films. They distributed it. They put it on.
What was the time frame from the time you said you were start pitching it to when it was released? Do you remember what that was? That window?
Yeah, it was a little while because we started pitching it for about a few months or here and there, and we were trying to find the same thing. It was trying to find the best deal, because then we were going through this other where we had people who wanted it. Obviously the bigger companies didn't want it because it wasn't enough. We didn't have enough face value, which I learned, it's actually important to put the most money into who you're going to cast.
Sells the movie.
It sells the movie. It does.
Yeah.
So, but the faith-based films at the time that were making a lot of money didn't have a big cast.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that. Selling a movie with your having a face actor.
Yeah. So we were kind of following that same formula, and we wanted to go to the same people that they did. And so we had some offers, but then there's always when you're selling a film, you got to figure out, how are you going to get your investors their money back? Because we didn't do a minimum guarantee on this. We didn't do any of that. We use all equity financing to get it off the ground. And then, whether we were going to go the festival route, put it in festivals, or just approach distributors. And that's what we did, is we went back to the markets now with a finished product. And that changed the excitement in somebody's, when you go to a market and you're like, hey, I have a concept, I have a script, and okay, cool. Yeah. Sit down. Let me hear about it. But if you just go knock on it and you don't have a meeting, because you're supposed to always schedule your meetings before you go to a market with any company. Mm-hmm. I always was just like smile and just like, hey, can I get a meeting with you now or tomorrow? Like just meeting with them in person.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, sure. We'll meet tomorrow and I'll hear your script idea. But going to the markets again, I would just go in and be like, hey, I have a finished film. Well, they would just move their desk, like, sit down. I want to show me your concept. Cause they're always looking to add,
it's ready.
It's ready to go. It's ready to sell,
Money to be made.
So then that's where that goes in. And then there's a lot of other negotiations in there too, because you want to get the best deal. Like, okay, like something in the contract might not settle with the other producers and financiers. So there's a lot that wasn't settling with my partners in Singapore with some companies. And I was still learning it all, but when it coming to selling your film, that's a whole nother thing that I did not learn, like what to expect. And, seeing the print and advertising, budgets that they have, when it comes down to the waterfall, a distributor always has to pay themselves back for all the advertising that they're going to spend on the money. And that's where you hear the horror stories of what happened with like Lord of the Rings, and like the Tolkien family never seeing a dime because they were the last on the waterfall for royalties. And, Warner Brothers like, well, we're still recovering from the print and advertising we spent. And so all that money Lord of the Rings made, like nobody else saw a dime because, and that's why they negotiated such a high premium to Amazon for the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were kind of going with that, like which company is going to actually sell this film and get us our money back and not just sell the film. For me, yeah, sure. It was like a win-win. If I sell it to a big company, I might not see a dime back or for my investors, but the movie gets out there, the production, the team looks good, and people will hire us for more stuff. The exposure, right? But my producers in it. So the most responsible thing is to get your investors their money back first. You want to keep them happy. You want to keep making films with them. And,
absolutely.
Rather than selling out. So we didn't want to sell out. We wanted to find, so that's where.
And did you had offers?
Yeah, we had offers. We had to turn down a lot of offers too.
But they good offers?
Yeah. And a lot of them didn't want to really negotiate because we're new people. They're like, well, take it or leave it.
Got it.
But yeah, that's why that took a little while. But then we ended up getting it out after another year.
So what would you say? What was the time frame to start to finish?
3 years. The crazy thing is everything was on my birthday. My birthday was June 8th. Right when we left pre-production, or right when I signed, it was my birthday, June 8th. Like once I left to Singapore, I had to sign over the paperwork when we did like a little trade article for it. It was June 8th. The next year, the first day, the first day of filming on my
June
feature
8th.
was my birthday.
Oh, wow.
So it was a good birthday gift for me to call action for the first time. And then when we finished editing it, it was June 8th. And then when we announced that we were going to sell it, it was just right before June 8th. So it was literally like 4 years, a 4-year process.
Hey, this is good. This is good for a lot of people to hear that,
Yeah.
Even though, one, it seems like everything somehow fell in place, even though I know there was a lot of horror stories on the set, and I know you told me a lot of things that, but that's on almost every set.
I was still young, I was still young. I was like 25 years old, and like that's...
Made your first feature film at $1 million, overseas.
Yeah. I've learned to button it up since then, but yeah, I and there was a lot of things that like my partners in Singapore were understanding about this was their first co-production. So dealing with like US contacts and things like that.
And the SAG.
And SAG, like they didn't know that, and neither did I. And so I figured, it's $1 million, so we'll be in this tier. So that's what we'll budget for.
And then they're like,
but then I didn't know about the global one. So there's always that's why you always got to plan for contingency.
So like, when did you decide that it's time to get back to US? How did that came about?
Well, after, like I said, like going through all that stuff, and once the film came out, and my, family was passing away, and then my dad got sick, and I was like, guys, I'm just gonna stay home.
Yeah,
like,
you want to be close to home.
There was nothing really going on out there after we finished the film, other than just having meetings and things like that. I'm like, I can just do a Zoom call, or like at the time it was like, we'll just do a Skype call.
Skype call if it's needed.
Yeah. And then I'll just stay in LA, and then I'll be your guy. If you want me to meet somebody in LA, I'll be your guy to go represent you guys.
Are you still with that company?
Not exclusively like that contract. We never really re-signed for me to be a part of them again, but we're still in good, connection. And whenever there's something like, for example, like your project, we can always, we talk, we call them up and see what can happen. So
what can happen? Absolutely.
That's why I always, like, as a producer, you always keep your contacts, even though you're, if you go to another company or you go do something else, you always keep them in mind, and they're always your family. So
got it. So you moved back to LA, and you were like, okay. Did you feel like a little bit maybe starting? It was kind of like a little bit starting over.
It was, yeah. So coming back to LA, I had to figure out what to do. So I came back. I was my family then just also moved to North Carolina during this whole process. So they left California, so I didn't have home to come home to, like family members and all that. My sister is still out in Redondo, but everyone else, peaced out. So I ended up living. So
you came back to be closer to your family.
Yeah.
And then when you got to here, you guys moved from the Anza area, right? From Redondo. And so you came back and everybody moved away. You were like, well, guys, I just moved back here to be close to everybody.
Exactly. And then so they moved to North Carolina. North Carolina was great and has a film industry out there. And my family was trying to convince me to go out there.
Really?
And I was considering it during the time when I was staying at my friend's house, and that's and he lived like down the street from my parents' house. So I was still in the same neighborhood, and I was bouncing back and forth to North Carolina, seeing the houses that they were looking at, or the house that, when we were looking at the houses, that was earlier, but when the house they were at, and I had my room set up and actually moved a lot of my stuff over there. And it's still there to this day, but since then, I was working at a gym, the UFC gym in Torrance, and I was doing that in the between while I was trying to figure out what is the next step.
And then you said, I'm going to produce.
But that's where another good thing about markets, even though I made, I made that deal with the one person I met at the market. It doesn't mean like the other people you meet, you always keep them in mind. He wanted me to help him with a zombie film, and I went and I met him at a market, and I ended up working on that, and it was a proof of concept that he was trying to get off the ground. But that crew I met, it started a little domino effect. The director of that proof of concept was like, "Hey man, I really like your attitude. Can you help me with my feature?" And because everyone's got a project, that they're sprucing up,
Right.
So I helped him out with that, and then that led me back to actually meeting with Higa Machado. And I didn't think
Grandmaster
I would hit up my
Brazilian
old
Jiu-Jitsu.
I mean, I knew he was great and everything. I didn't think he would remember me. He trained me since I was like a kid all the way through high school. And then he came to set one day I was working on, and I ended up working with him and seeing what he was doing. And it was just, and he was like, he's the grandmaster of jiu-jitsu and the grandmaster of networking. So he would help me introduce me to people and in the city and in LA, and that really helped build up my contacts.
What was the first big thing that you did back in the, like when you make your connections and started to working little projects? Did you start with like music videos and shorts or things like that, or went straight to feature film?
I mean, I did the proof of concept. I did like proof of concepts for people. So people who needed, me to assemble a crew, or I was working with my friend who brought me to Singapore. He had a little production company where he did like boutique stuff, like commercials, music videos, corporate commercials and things like that, cool. Small stuff. And, but after the proof of concept, I went into a feature. It was a Chinese finance feature where they brought,
that's a nightmare
actors.
one, right?
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. Well, we'll have you back, buddy, for sure.
Yeah.
That one.
I have a whole bunch of stories there, but long story short on that one, a lot of other learning experiences. Also too, like at that point I was way more experienced than I was, and I've already gone through all the mistakes I made on Her Yard. So I knew what to look for and what to expect, but they didn't, and they didn't want to listen to me. And, it just, certain things happened that shouldn't have happened.
That shot here, right? That shot in LA.
Yeah. And,
you've met Camille, your future wife.
Well, I met her line dancing.
Right.
Yeah.
But like,
and that's the reason why I didn't go to North Carolina.
You guys were together, right?
Yeah.
Right. And she worked on the movie as well, right?
Yeah. So she was,
she told me some horror stories of you like,
yeah. Well, I brought
passing
her,
out of exhaustion.
She was, like, I came back to when I came back from Singapore, my parents were in North Carolina, and I was figuring out what to do. I was working at the gym, and I was doing like the proof of concepts. I was really planning on going to North Carolina and exploring the industry out there and doing the same thing I did in Singapore and just going somewhere different. But when I met Camille, I stayed in LA, and poor thing, I brought her on this film as a PA.
We'll do another episode about that. We're going to talk about that because there's a lot of stories that you can share.
But it was great. It was all great experiences.
Exactly.
Like I find them the most valuable. I don't ever look at them as curses. I look at them as blessings. Like to have not necessarily like great people again working with them, but the problems that happen are just they're meant to happen for you to adapt and to get stronger. And that production really helped me out so much because of all the obstacles I had to solve. And, meeting Higa Machado, kind of fast forwarding to where we are today, Camille became my fiance. We moved to North Hollywood. Me and Higan, reconnected after years since he trained me since I was a kid. And I saw him and I was like, what are you doing? What are you up to? And he's like, I'm trying to make movies, and you're a producer, and I want you to help me meet these people. And he's hanging out with all the big, people he's hanging out with Rob Wise from Entourage, the guy who started Entourage, and he's hanging out with all these actors, and he's a celebrity trainer, and they're helping him with projects. And so he's constantly trying to connect people, and he sees me as, he's trying to help me out in my career. And he knows that
he's
kind
a
of floating
wonderful
around
human being. He's super generous, kind, like always trying to help network people. Yeah, I had the same experience, and he's trying to obviously link me with actor for my feature that I'm working on. So exactly. he's a very generous,
very humble person.
Very humble.
He's hard person to find in LA, especially when you're a filmmaker trying to network. He doesn't.
Well, Hegan, we're going to have you on the show.
Yes, we are.
We are. Actually, I'd love to also do a show with you and Hegan.
Oh, I would love to tell that story. Yeah. We were both. But yeah. Anyways,
You're back in the U.S. You met Hegan. You've done this other. That was also Southeast Asian American co-production, right?
Yeah.
Was it Chinese film? Chinese co-production?
It was a co-production, yeah, but it was like kind of the reverse. It was them coming here, and I was the guy in L.A.
Yeah. And then, by the way, your thoughts on television versus film? Do you have any experience with television as well? Or?
I don't have too much experience with television. I mean, one of the projects I did in Chapman was a TV pilot, and we had to learn how to get that out there. It's a whole other animal, and
completely, yeah. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit. I come from union television.
Yeah,
aiding.
Well, in between all this, from that one project I did to working with Hegan, before American Sicario, I did a short proof of concept that we were pitching as a TV show. So I was getting into that world a little bit, like talking to studio executives, sending it out to them, having those meetings, doing the negotiations. And one idea was one I wrote. So I wanted to be the showrunner on it or at least one of the writers in the writer room. And so there was the whole debacle with the WGA, which I can talk about in another episode as well. And then, going through all that kind of stuff, doing proof of concepts and setting up for TV shows. I was trying to get into the TV world, and then that's when he introduced me to Philippe, and that led to Raja and American Sicario,
and then us
reconnecting, and
then sitting here today talking about everything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So we've reconnected after 6 years. You went off we met in Ocean Bar. We worked together for a little bit between jobs. Then I went on to start a completely different business outside of film industry. Learn a lot of the financing business, client relations. But we reconnected on American Sicario, which we shot in 2020 during pandemic in Las Vegas, and we were there for about a month. How was that experience for you?
But yeah, going back, it's pretty crazy. Going through basically
it went fast too, right? We
just moved to a house in North Hollywood. So I moved from Torrance. I've always been staying in Torrance. Moved from Torrance to North Hollywood, and then the future looked bright. Like it's just because all these little proof of concepts and things I was doing, they were still spending. They're paying me enough money to live in a house, And I just got engaged. The future looked bright. The pandemic hit. Everything shut down. I had to go into unemployment for the first time. Which
the gig workers in the film industry, I don't think people realize how hard it was, how hard everybody got hit.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially where it's just like, well, what do I do now? And I can't film anything. And it was kind of just a lot of sitting around. So that made the best of my situation. I started writing again because I started falling out of that. I was more focusing on producing. So I started writing the ideas that I did have out, like most of, people and during their quarantine. But I really wanted to get something going, and Hegan introduced me to Philippe, and Philippe basically had this small budget.
His last name, Philippe.
Haddad.
Philippe Haddad.
Yeah.
Who was our lead.
And Philippe.
Also a major portion of financing.
Yeah, and he was a great actor. He did phenomenal in the film, but he was always trying to, he was saving up money for a long time, and he had a micro budget for a film, and he came to me with a comedy idea. And I didn't tell him no, but I really wanted to figure it out. I wanted to see like, okay, this is a cool, idea for a comedy, but how can we make this happen with $300,000? Basically, I'm not going to tell you what the story idea was about, but it involved a lot of extras, a lot of protesting scenes and things like that. So, and when he only had $200,000 at the time, and he made the short of being this famous, Sicario. And he played this, he played a major.
We're allowed to say the name, or we're not allowed to say the name?
It's based off of true events. So
based on true events.
The way we did American
the short, right?
Yeah.
So the short he made, was based off of this character name. What was his name?
He was just a character. I mean, we're not going to talk about it, but
no.
Okay.
But this is based on an actual cartel head type guy who is the only ever American Sicario.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's similar stories. That we took.
Got it.
We kind of meshed a lot of cartel drama stories that come from real life, and made it into this movie about true events. So you know, like our writer kind of just took not just from like one guy. He looked at like stories from everyone all throughout the years, and formulated an awesome story.
And this happened quick because I know I had the script in front of me in like August or July.
Yeah, this was August.
Yeah.
And
I
going through the
sent,
pandemic.
I sent it to Raja, sent it to me. I broke it down, sent it back to him. He's like, this guy just broke it down for. It's like, well, you know, we're gonna go shoot it.
Yeah,
this is kind of what I'm thinking, and then I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
and then it got really micro, and then I remember Raja kind of didn't want to call me because he was.
Well, we were so tight on the budget.
He was like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Insult Brian or like I was like, no, I'm a team player. Let's do this. We're not doing anything in pandemic, and we sat down, we worked out, and negotiated, and we made it happen. But the time from like when the script started happening to where we went to shoot was like 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, we started. I here's the timeline. There was in the summertime.
Can you put this a little bit?
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Just a little bit closer. No, you can put it down, but just a little bit closer to your face.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
In the summertime, that's when I started having conversations with Philippe. He showed us the short film that he made.
I actually met Philippe and Raja for the first time. I met them on a barbecue with Pascal, the director of photography of this, on the Malibu Lake, and they were telling me kind of you know about it and whatever, and we're ready to go do this, and it was like, oh, okay.
So yeah, it was cool. We started talking about it, and then we I was trying to figure out his comedy idea, and I didn't know he had a short of a cartel thriller, and met with Raja, and Hegan introduced us to Raja, so Hegan brought us all together, and then we were like looking at it and like this cartel.
Rob Rich, the writer.
Raja did.
Raja. Okay, yeah, they worked together on a bunch of films before.
Yeah.
True.
So we ended up bringing like all of our contacts together. You know, that's how we became the family. But we decided like this cartel, we can totally make this for the budget that we have. Raja had the game plan already to go shoot out in Nevada during COVID because it was a right of work state, less restriction out there. It was different. You know, it's different from what we're going through in California. So we went out there. You know, we formulated the team. Locations and everything were great. The commissioner was super friendly. It was just different people. It was like I felt like when I was in the Philippines. And they were all professional. They all knew what to do. I mean, you know how it was. You know, you ran them. So,
do you know how? Do you remember how you found out that we were going to work together on this movie?
Well, I mean, they were saying something about
you guys were driving to Scout in Vegas, right?
We were driving to Scout. And what happened was they were talking about bringing on an AD. Oh, yeah, Brian, he's great. We're going to have him come on. And then Roger was like, okay, well, we got to think of our budget. And at the time, because I was like, you know, it was one of those things where we had to be super slim. Like I had to bring on Camille as my production designer with no help. I had to, you know, just because I knew she's great. Like she's great. She's talented. And but also too, there's nobody else who would work for the rates that we had to give in order to pull this off.
Right.
Because we had the dream of we've been going through COVID for so long, like this year.
Everybody wanted to get out and make something.
We wanted to make something happen. At least try. You know, if we're going to get shut down, we're going to get shut down. But we're going to at least, you know, for COVID reasons, if somebody got COVID, not because we don't run a set safe or anything, but we're going to make it happen. And I was supposed to AD because I'm so used to wearing so many hats. I was going to AD and do all that do every other job again, which I'm glad we found. You know, we have you and
you had a lot. You had a lot of.
We just assumed
hats.
a lot of people were going to say no to you know to working minimum wage, you know, and not to their usual rate they make. But surprisingly, a lot of people were just as hungry as we were to make a movie.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We went out, you know, when we did it, and honestly, it was, out of all the films I've made, it was the surprisingly smoothest film I've ever done. Like, without problems and great attitudes all around. We didn't go overtime. I think we went one day. What was it, like half an hour, 30-minute overtime.
Really proud of that.
Unheard of. Every production I have ever worked on, you know, working different jobs, they always go overtime. You know, so there's always another shot they have to get or whatever. But Roger did a great job knowing.
Absolutely. Our director. His very fast.
Working with the directors too, like they always have their ideas and their vision and they talk to you about it and their game plan, but they don't really know what to do still. Like they think they do, but they don't. And Raja, coming from 25 years of producing and saying, this is going to be my directorial debut, as a producer, I was like, I'm on board with that actually. And him and Rich, the writer he's been working with, which they've done a bunch of films together already. This was going to be the first one he's going to direct of Rich's stuff, and they worked together creatively.
Yeah.
So I already knew ahead of time that this is going to be a good idea. But actually, but there's always still that doubt, like, is it actually going to pan through? And Raja coming through with like explaining his ideas of what he wanted to do, and actually pushing through and doing it and shooting the exact to the plan. It felt like I was on a football team with a really good coach, and he's like, "Hey, here's how the play is going to go, and here's how we're going to score the touchdown." I'm like, "Yeah, but something could always happen." And then, nope, we always did. So I felt like we had that championship team with American Sicario.
It was really incredible team that we put together.
You as well, man. You keep running the set and keeping everything on time. Tori, doing all the jobs he had to do. So
who's that?
Yeah.
Oh, you know who that is.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a definitely a good experience, and I think, well, the one thing was working with like-minded people. Everyone was on the same wavelength. That's why we had minimal problems. All the problems that I had to face before helped me foresee a lot of things and make sure that they didn't happen. And then I had somebody like Raja, who was producing for 25 years too, who also knew the exact same things can happen.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that we have to execute it this way. Yeah. So
it was great. It was probably one of my favorite crews I've ever worked with as well.
Yeah.
I've worked on quite a bit of stuff in the union and different shows, and episodes. Things are changing, people are changing, but this was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to also like have a big house that we rented, and that most of the key people were were on an.
We had to stay in the bubble.
Yeah, and like because of COVID, and then coming home after the set, I'd come home the last, and everybody, like Jalen, one of our lead actors, would be cooking dinner and be like, "Come here, Brian. Here you go." Here's dinner.
Yeah, it was great.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
1.5 an hour overtime on an 11-day shoot.
Yeah.
Shot a whole feature film.
Yeah.
Action with a bunch of stunts and choreography. And remember when I bought the little toy cars and choreographed the major kind of, don't want to give out anything obviously, but in the trailer you can, see the kind of a final standoff here.
Yeah.
Explaining it to all the extras who are not extras, who are basically just guys that were all jiu-jitsu and martial arts trained guys, and we made them into cartel bad guy,
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. The first 3 days, man, the desert.
Yeah.
That killed me.
Well, that was the learning experience we had there. Like my job was to, other than looking at all the other potential things, is to balance the budget, and we had no assistance or help because I didn't think we were going to, be able to afford it. And we actually had to look for financing on the fly, and that's always like it's always like a PTSD thing for me since 100 yards, and I'm just like, oh no, here it is again. But at this point, I was just like, I'm kind of used to this now, and that's why I tell any young filmmaker, like, don't worry about it.
You had like
you can get through
hats. You had like a seven hat type of line producer, production coordinator, producer, driver.
Yeah.
You wore definitely a lot of hell. It's like this running joke on set, right? Where's Ross?
Well, I mean, like, and then it's just.
He's somewhere there doing that or that or that or that. This is one or the other. He's getting the gear. He's, you did amazing. It was fantastic, man.
Yeah.
And I can't believe we can't say exactly, but like we made the movie for a very, small budget and during pandemic with the whole COVID.
And even before we even had it out, we had a distribution deal. It's just, and that's where we learned the value. That's not where I learned the value, but you could see the value. It was one of those things we were talking about. Well, negotiating with Danny Trejo. Mm-hmm. Getting, spending the money, a bulk of our budget that we need, because every dollar counts, on somebody who's going to be there for 2 days, but he is a crucial character.
He was so much fun, wasn't he? He was
great.
He's such a great guy. Yeah. Such a humble team player. Sat down. We had lunch, came, sat down.
Yeah.
He's like,
called you Treetop?
Called me Treetop. Yeah.
Yeah.
First day he saw me, went to introduce myself, how we're going to run in step for the next 2 days. And he's like, all right, Treetop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then everybody's like, oh, Treetop.
Yeah. So that's the thing, and he was great to work with. And I know a lot of major actors are great to work with from what I hear.
Yeah.
So, but, they just having him in place, it got us the distribution deal right off the bat, even before we finished the film. Mm-hmm. So.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. It was a team effort. And everybody,
yeah.
but you and Raja really then took it to the next level and knew how to. I think Tori cut one of the first trailers and then got and it
was actually Tori's trailer that actually got us the distribution. So good job, buddy. Like he
thanks, man.
Threw that together, and You know, we actually ended up before like our other trailer, his rough trailer, because we were so close to the market.
Yeah.
Our sales team was like, we need something. You know, we're gonna have meetings in a minute. We need something. So Tori put something together real quick, showed some like highlight clips of Danny Trejo, and
Nice.
we're like, I was just like, just throw Gangster's Paradise in there.
An amazing thing about American Sicario for me was really the people we worked with.
Yeah.
Pascal, you, Raja, Rich,
Yeah.
you know, the actors, and Tori, of course, you know.
Got to give big props to Pascal. I mean, coming in and helping us out with all the equipment that he had, and you know,
shooting on the
and giving
famous
and he
area
shot with
Alexa.
passion. He didn't shoot like somebody who was just like, oh, I'm just doing this as a job.
No.
You know,
he wanted to create a
Yeah.
absolutely stunning cinematic film.
Yeah.
And he delivered crazy. It was unbelievable.
And everyone from above and below the line on that film, like they came with so much passion and brought the best of their work to it, as if it was going to be their last production. Because I think that's what was the beauty of COVID, is it made people grateful to be
And appreciate.
Yeah,
absolutely.
what they're
100%. 100%.
and remind them what they're doing. It's
Yep.
not just a job, you know. It's like at any time we could be out of that work.
Yeah.
So give it everything you got.
So before we wrap it up here with you today, we're going on 2 hours. Great conversation, buddy. Thank you for
It's been 2 hours?
Thanks.
Crap.
Yeah, almost. Man, time flies. You know,
Yeah.
and you're having a great conversation. But
Yeah.
another thing for me, obviously, on American Sicario was what you did for me, and you came to me. You know that I wanted to direct, wanted to move up from being an AD. That's actually why I quit ADing in Canada and moved to US and started over, because I, wasn't giving the opportunity.
We got to do an
direct.
episode on you, man.
Well, there's going to be plenty of, little inserts from here and there. But
Yeah.
you came to me halfway through the process. You liked what I was doing as an AD and handling people. And you said, hey, I have this opportunity in Singapore. I have this script. And,
Yeah.
and I was already talking to Rich, our writer, who
Yeah.
was hanging out with us in Vegas, which was amazing also to have the writer there.
Yeah.
Like when we needed to make little changes or whatnot. And you said, hey, I have this thing. I think you'd be pretty great for it. And I think you could direct this, and let's talk further. So for me, the people I've met, the work we've done and everything kind of paid off into what I wanted to do, was get on set, meet people, do what I was great at, but then also show, and network with people too eventually. And now I'm working on my first feature film.
Yeah.
And that's super exciting. And then we're also keeping the momentum of the whole crew going. And you guys are really, you, Raja, and, Rich, you guys are really stepping it up. And so what's the next thing for the team? What's Deceptive, right? So another feature film that Rich wrote.
There's a few, yeah. I mean, Rich wrote that, and there's always been, there's some projects that, before COVID, was striking, like Deceptive, right? You were working on that as well.
Yes.
You were already breaking that down. And there were certain ideas that, like, okay, during COVID, this is not going to work, or for the budget. And now that we have that game plan, that we realized shooting in Nevada that we could do the same thing with Deceptive. And that's what we're, trying to aim to do. We gotta follow the same game plan though. We first got to get, now we have the interested parties of a sales company or distributor.
Yeah.
You got to get the actor attached. And
Based off the momentum of American Sicario.
Yeah. That's what we're going to do. So
just
that's
keep
the
the
best
momentum
thing.
going.
Yeah. Keep the pan hot. So
right now we are in a process where we at. We're waiting for the Danny Trejo type name attached to the project.
In a way, yeah. And it's not just Deceptive. It's always another project, and there's always another project can come along, during that time. I mean, I know yours are still in development, but if they were ready, we would be working on that. It's just like, what can we do? Like, where would be the best angle and strategy? Like, which partner do I talk to about this? Which company do I send this to? So there's a few. So we're not trying to just focus on one. We're trying to focus on multiple.
Yeah, keeping it kind of like when you went to the market and you have all these different pitches, and then it happens to be yours, the thing that you wrote that people were exciting about. So it's good to have. Yeah.
In a perfect world, they all could work out, and just in different timelines, and you can set up your career that way, your next 5 years, by just lining up the projects in the right time.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so that's what Taylor Sheridan did with his scripts, just like you are with yours.
What about, amazing process, by the way, working with Rich and developing a script together. We're actually working on 2 feature films, which just mind-boggling how that
And you told me over the phone, too,
happened.
you're not going to be in love with one, but you want to have them all ready, and then there will be that one that for sure.
and the other ones that you were, you're confident in as well, but
Absolutely.
you know that there's a different time for them.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the story that you brought to me wasn't something that I would necessarily have chosen myself,
Yeah.
but you offered it to me, and I've looked at it, and then there's a lot of work that needed to be with the story. We've actually there was a script, and then we met with your investor, who,
Yeah.
and things changed, and now I'm loving every step of it. It's a
yeah,
brilliant science fiction that Rich is writing, and me and you and everybody involved working on the concept. But anyway, so to wrap it up, any kind of words of wisdom for aspiring starting producer, or any kind of, you want to close out on?
I would say for any inspiring producer, like as a producer, you have a responsibility not to just do it for yourself. Always look out for the other people that you have. The moment you do get your opportunity, make sure that you can help to bring somebody else up as well, because that's how this industry is going to keep the wheels rolling, and that's how we all are going to survive.
That's
So
wonderful, man.
Everyone look out for each other like you're a family.
I had a lot of fun shooting American Sicario with you, brother. Always pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man.
Always,
Thank you for having me.
We can always be chatting about movies
Yeah.
nonstop, 24/7 stories.
So
and
I'm like,
everything.
that's another episode, man.
Absolutely. We'll do another one. Well, Ross, thanks for coming. Everyone, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right.
All right. Bye, everybody.
See ya.